live stream. Nope, not live streaming, recording, but close enough. Anyways, what are these live streamers up to? Let's see. With the IMDb plot. As a team of live streamers embark on a haunted house challenge, they quickly realize that the scares may be more real than they anticipated. With each twist and turn, they must navigate through the terror and fight to survive the night. Um, okay, we'll talk about that a little bit more as we kind of dive into this one. This is new film recently released, I believe, on streaming on demand. Um, I believe I did press release for this one, so if I remember, I will kind of attach that at the bottom so that you guys, if you guys need more information about where to find it and so forth. But again, being a new film, we'll try to kind of keep this spoiler free. I guess there is a little bit something to spoil, so we'll try to kind of leave that out of the equation for you guys who haven't seen it. Anyway, with the title live stream and so forth, I would guess you guys might be able to assume that this is a found footage style film, and it is. We've seen, probably not as many as I would have thought, and I guess there's some that I haven't seen or maybe not get as big of a push. Maybe thought I would seen a little bit more, but, we've seen kind of different versions of these live streaming horror films. Kind of a different way of doing the found footage thing, or I guess a more present day way of doing the found footage thing. I guess some have worked for me, some haven't. Again, found footage in its whole, I've made my complaints about it. Not to say that there aren't good found footage films, but certainly, I've always had my complaint about it. I'm not going to get into any of that. But yeah, this one is very live streamed, the whole movie, and we get the kind of live stream with the comments that are flashing up on the right hand corner of the screen throughout most of the film. And I guess the point of them going through the whole exercise, they are live streamers or whatever, but to increase the following and get all the views as this is going on that they possibly can. I keep looking at the IMDb plot thing. They mentioned this whole haunted house challenge. Again, while I might have seen this, a few days ago, and not remember every single detail of the movie, I don't remember that being a part of it or a big part of it. I do remember them, wanting to go to that house for a certain reason. Maybe that's it. But really the haunted house part of it, and you kind of read that and you're kind of like, okay, that kind of could set up for some interesting stuff. But it really kind of then goes a little bit different of a direction. And maybe that's not really what's going on here. I will say that again, maybe I would have liked it in a different way if it went that way. But, we'll see my final thoughts here soon. But yeah, we kind of get, right into it at the beginning of the film. We get introduced to them kind of being pulled over by a cop and going through the whole, get out of the car thing and kind of show, the cop trying, maybe abusing his power and blah, blah, blah. But because, she's live streaming, they kind of get out of it, but, with the warning and so forth. Almost an unnecessary way to start the film, but I guess, that's the way they wanted to do it. Before they eventually end up at the house that they're going to stay. You kind of get a quick introduction to all the characters here in the car, and then when they arrive at this house, you kind of get an introduction to who they are, their relationship among each other. Obviously, the one really with the camera, she is the main live streamer here. Not to say that others don't do a similar thing. Each kind of has their talent. I think one's like a comedian, one's maybe an artist or something. But, maybe not, as much into the live streaming as she is, the main person here. But, kind of have their own thing going on and reasons to be there. Again, they have different interactions with each other, different things going on. Some may like each other. The kind of typical thing that we kind of see in, maybe some of these other live streamed kind of shows and any kind of teen slasher kind of thing. We get that, we have to be shown the characters and, do they like each other? Who's sleeping with who likes who's the boyfriend, who's not, who likes who, does that play anything into it and all that nonsense. And it goes, and it kind of seems to go on a bit with all of that. The movie, it was an hour and a half, so yeah, it's about the standard time. But I mean, it just seems to kind of go on with that early on in the film, and just, if you kind of dive into that, you like that kind of thing, it's fine with you. I mean, to me, I could care less. I think I've made my point in many a review, that, some movies are for character development and others aren't. And some movies are for you to, dive into the characters and really care about them and, what's going on with them and so forth, and others aren't. And when it's this kind of movie, I'm just not. And it's just super heavy on them early on the film, especially since it's being live streamed. You can't get away with them. There's no break. There's no nothing. You're in it. You're getting the camera tossed around. And again, there is that drama between them. There's always drama between somebody. So you get a scene of two drama and blah, blah, blah. Before we really get into what is happening here, the horror part of the film, horror fans, we want to see the horror, and we have to go through the complete exercise time after time of nonsense before we can get to the horror. The movie didn't even open up with horror. I mean, come on now. So we get obviously all that. We get introduced to the people who have the house, who are there, giving them house, letting them stay in this house. And we get that introduction. I think it's a mother, father, and a young girl who happens to know this live streamer, and she's supposedly your biggest fan, so she's happy to be there, that they're there as well. So everybody's having a good time, and then of course there's the drama or whatever before we get to the horror of the situation. So eventually it becomes nighttime. They go outside, more conversation, talk, blah blah. One person pretends to have an accident and whatever, and it is fake, and that causes more drama, and more people are pissed and hating each other now and whatever, blah blah. Until finally we get the real horror, and finally somebody's dead, and finally panic sets in, and finally what's going on and who did it, and are they really dead, are they not, after that whole other incident, and all through it all, what do we do? Do we call the cops? Where do the people that were staying in the house go? What are they doing? What is going to happen now? And then more fighting amongst the group, and then more chaos until more people start ending up dead. And then we kind of go down the avenue of, I don't want to give it away what's happening here, but then we slowly figure out, what is happening here. Is it a ghost? Is it, there's the haunted house challenge? Is it one of them? Is it, this person, that person, or the other? Is there a slasher in the woods hiding? What is happening here? So with all that said, are we getting anything brand smacking new here? Probably not. We're getting, again, I think at the end of the day, characters that, again, I didn't really care about. I'm not going to say it was, I'm not going to say the acting was terrible, but, again, when you don't have characters that you're completely liking, it doesn't help when you're just not totally in favor of the acting. Not to say it was bad acting, but, you're just not, you're like, I don't like them, and, that doesn't mean necessarily I'm liking the acting either. I don't know. I think there was a little bit of annoyance with certain characters that also, when you don't care about them and then you start getting annoyed, it starts affecting, how you're watching the film. Yeah, I'm trying to kind of think, I know the first death we didn't really get to see. Trying to think of maybe some of the others, if we really got into the blood and guts of the matter, and I don't really think we did. I'm trying to think of how some of the other deaths played out, and it's escaping my mind at the moment. But I don't think we're getting tremendously huge in the blood and guts either. I think in some of the films that I've liked, or at least some of them, whether I liked it or not, I found interest in the live streaming comments. And I know it's a 50-50 thing, because I think some people might think it's distracting when you're watching a movie. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a movie, but you're having this constant rolling in the corner there of comments, and especially the early part of the film when they're just talking, and are you really reading it? Are you reading them and not paying attention to the characters? Should you be reading them? Then do you find them more interesting than what's really happening in the movie? Then once things really start happening and that are weird or scary or people are dying, whatever, again, how much are you really paying attention to those comments? Are those people doing anything to help the situation? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? I think I've found, I don't remember the movies off the top of my head, but I've, found some of them had some interesting, funny, well-timed comments. This one, I can't say I spent a whole bunch of time kind of reading the comments. They seem to be coming at a rapid pace, and so rapid at certain times that it was just not worth, really focusing on, because it was, they were really small and going fast, and by the time you were kind of watching what was going on and trying to gather what the overall theme of what the people were saying, it was just, I was just like, okay, whatever, I can't, just can't handle this, constant scrolling of stuff. I really wished they would have slowed that down. Again, as the movie kind of goes on and as things get a little bit more intense, of course, the viewership kind of starts to go up and up, so that means more people can comment. But it just, at times it starts just being way too rapid into a pace where you're just like, no, I can't, I'm just not going to try to catch all these comments. Not that, great, huge things are going on the screen that you couldn't do both at the same time, but it was just like, no, it's too rapid fire. Like, is it really necessary that I catch every single comment that's going on here? I think I think there'll come a point, if you don't already know, kind of what's going on here, you'll have a good guess at what's going on here. There'll be some situations where it kind of calms down and the characters will be in a dramatic, suspenseful moment or something like that, and it'll be time for them to decide what to do. And at that point, again, you might try to refer to the comments to see if they're giving any advice or not. Again, you're just moving too quickly. I kind of enjoy it more when the comments are kind of, maybe a little bit slower and maybe a little bit more funny, even though the situation might not be funny, especially when you're assuming that the characters are in dire straits here. But, always that one wise ass who maybe think it's fake or whatever says a funny thing. But it just got to the point where I stopped trying, or I just was not interested as well, or I didn't care enough about the characters, so I didn't care what advice they were getting in the corner either. So, I think, without spoiling where it goes, I think, where it eventually ends up, it's kind of an okay story and kind of maybe fits in the world we live in today and so forth. But I think at the end of the day, it didn't necessarily make for a hugely, must-see movie at the end of the day. So yeah, I'm going to say this one didn't quite work for me. Again, starting with the characters, I really wasn't interested in any of them. And, that seemed to be a problem throughout. And then again, just, to me, it wasn't a total surprise with what was happening. And they tried to, have a dramatic end. It was okay. But again, I think if they would have maybe stuck a little bit more to that so-called haunted house challenge and maybe done something in that direction, maybe I would have found something more to my liking. So I don't know. And again, as I always say, it always hits a certain point in a movie, in a found footage thing, where just put the camera down and get the hell out. Or if the camera's not gonna help you, get the hell out. Or just, what's with the constant camera thing? Just move on. There's always that certain point where just move on. Like, I just could not imagine myself being in a situation that was like that, and I just had to carry on with the camera the entire time. But whatever, that's just me, I guess. So yeah, it doesn't have a whole ton of reviews here on IMDb. Not fantastic there either. So with that, I think I'm gonna give this one pool of blood. I hate, out of 5, that's one pool of blood out of 5. I hate doing that. I don't want to do it, especially it's a new movie. I want you guys to go out and see it, encourage that. But and I guess for those who are found footage fans and into this style and movie, maybe you guys like it a lot more than I did. I just wasn't for me at the end of the day, and so forth. So again, that's one pool of blood out of 5. So with that, horrorgory-reviews.blogspot.com, so you can find all of my reviews written in video, certainly mostly video reviews for a while now, so you can like, subscribe, and do everything else that everybody wants you to do. If not, no worries, it is okay. I thank you for your time regardless. Twitter, Facebook information down below. Feel free to reach out to me there. Your thoughts on this film, found footage, and so forth. Please feel free to start up a conversation, and definitely in the comment section as well. Your thoughts, maybe your thoughts on the live streaming thing, or your thoughts on the comments flying all about as you're watching the film. Feel free to put all that down in the comment section, and we'll see where that goes. So with that, I'll catch you on the next review, horror fans.